So, Colin, thank you so much for making time to share your insights into the future of leadership. But before we go into leadership, can you tell us a little bit about your own background? Where did you grow up?
Thank you, Dr. Nick, for the opportunity. Well, if I go back to my background, I was born in Durban. And, as a growing up, I really had a passion for art. Now, my passion was to actually become an art teacher. And, that was my goal to do that. But, as you go through maneuver these opportunities or relationships or careers, things change. And I'm glad in terms of the change that happened. When I was studying art, I learned a lot about actually not only being creative in actually doing art, but being creative in actually everything around. So I actually took the entire concept of creativity and I brought it into an actually lifestyle. And I think that's why I moved into an entire different career from teaching art.
So how did art, the study of art, inspire you?
Well, I think the main part in that is that breaking the boundaries of what things normally should be. Just to give you an example, just to make you understand, I got a distinction for painting in the final year without using a drop of paint. Now, at that time, I'm talking 1994. They were painting, drawing, sculpture were placed in boxes. You had to conform to a particular curriculum to produce a painting. And in my final year, it was out of just the enjoyment of what material can do, what the different materials can do. And when my lecturer saw that I was really getting into beyond just painting trees and oceans and sunsets, which people can relate to. When you look at those pictures, it's comfortable for you to look at it because you can relate to it. As soon as you see just a circle without any paint and just making you look into and try to question what is that, conceptual art, it started to intrigue me about what you can start doing with different types of material. And I carried that across from painting to sculpture to drawing, and I got distinctions for all of them. And not really, a drawing, for example, for me was a piece of stone that I angle grind for, let's say, about 20 minutes. And that was my drawing. Whereas my colleagues had to spend 8 weeks to produce a drawing, So it was those kind of things. But coming back to your question is that that showed me that everything doesn't have to be the way that you are being taught. You have to have something coming out from inside you that makes it Colin or Dr. Nick, And that's when I learned that why can't I take the same enjoyment and success into the world that I live in terms of everything that I do. And now we call it solutionist thinking kind of thing. If there's a problem, how do you think of resolving it? If there's a challenge, how do you overcome it? And that concept of looking at things differently helps me every day.
So, Colin, in your early days, who inspired you?
Well, I would say in the very, very early days, I would say it was probably my parents first. My dad was a teacher, and in the way he behaved, he's calm, kind, allowing us to explore ourselves, in terms of work and stuff like that. I think that was an inspiration because I kind of implemented that kind of way of how he behaved. And my mom on the other side was this kindness. We used to get shocked about, beggars coming in, and she should make them sit down and feed them, and at a very early age. And this kind of thing inspired me in terms of how we should be, growing up. And now that you asked me that question, I think about, that's an important part in everything you do, is relationships. I mean, relationships is actually a strategy in business if you think about it. I mean, in my experience is that that's the foundation of your success. That's the foundation of overcoming challenges, is the relationships. And the way to have those relationships is based on what I just told you. You know, respect, kindness, listen to the person, you know, really, really understand where they come from. And then, you know, I was thinking that if you think about that, I consider myself, let's consider ourselves as a dot, and a pulsating dot, you know, that gives out this kind of, that's what we are as human beings. And by yourself, your pulsatingness can only reach a certain range by yourself. When you connect with another person and they have this other pulse also, now can you imagine, I mean, we use the words very loosely, network and, you know, connecting, but if you really think about it, what is your network? Your network is connecting those pulses with people. But it's not so easy, because to connect you have to really respect and be kind and understand what the person does. So where I'm getting at, bring it to the business role, is that if you have these different connections, these dots, your range just increases. So why would you want to increase your range? Because when you come across a challenge, you tap into that network. Now, the interesting thing is, how do you tap? Because everybody says this is normal. You know, we have a network of people, we tap into them, but it's the how you tap into it. Because most people tap into it, into a network, for a challenge, to overcome a challenge. But you have to tap into a network where there is beneficial both ways. And that's where the creativity comes in. So let me give you a simple example. And that's why I keep on latching on the fact that relationships is a strategy. You know, when you come across a challenge and you have to look back into this network and say, where can you find the solution? The solution has to be, how do both parties benefit while you overcome this challenge?
So it's not a one-way street.
Exactly. And that's why, you know, most people take a network and they change it into a self-work. When you work it for yourself, you're going to end up being by yourself, you know. So that's where the challenge comes in. And you know, if I think back of the most successful projects that I've done, it's about having this network and relationships that you can tap into and both benefit and take them with you, you know. I mean, there's one or two, you know, exciting projects that stand out. It doesn't have to really be about closing a deal or business, but it's funny that some of the ones that I think that really changed me as a person, or the ones that I really think, wow, that was great, there's nothing have to do with closing a deal, you know. So that's why I go back and you push me into asking that question. Now it just makes me think that that's how I start to think, I start to operate. So the art thing really changed the way I think.
So relationships is a strategy, and something that we should probably be teaching our kids.
Definitely.
From early on.
Yeah.
So, Colin, where did you start your career?
I started my career at South African Airways. And this is a little bit of a funny story. You know, as I said to you, remember, I wanted to be an art teacher. That I was fixated on being an art teacher, because I finished university and I realized that, you know, art is actually not that difficult. And people, when you ask people, you know, can you draw? They say, no, I cannot draw. You know, that drawing is like, you know, and I wanted to break that stigma with kids especially, because I believed every child can draw. You know, I mean, just the other day, my niece called me. She's 5, and she wanted to draw, you know, as one of these cartoon characters. And on the phone, she said, I must, you know, draw it and then keep it ready for her. She can pick it up the next day. I says, no, you're gonna do it now while I talk to you. And as I was talking to her on the phone, I broke up the picture for her, just to look at the line rather than the entire thing. And it was amazing what she did. So even those years, I believed that I could do this, and that's why I wanted to teach art. So my friend was coming to Johannesburg to become a flight attendant. And I said, okay, I have an interview there at a school in Johannesburg for an art teacher. I'm going to join you. Let's do this. And I came down, I had the interview with the principal. He really said to me, listen, Colin, you are the guy for this job. I was so excited. That was my first job. I called my mom. I said, guess what? I'm going to be a teacher. And the next day, my friend was going for an interview to become a flight attendant. And he said to me, listen, don't sit in the car. There's a whole hall full of people here. Why don't you come and wait there and then, you can do this. So I went up and I waited, and as the interviews went, the guy says, next. And I said, no, well, I'm not. He says, next. I said, okay, no problem. I'm here. So he said, remember, when you're not really wanting the job, you're much more relaxed that, you could be making a joke. So there were like 6 people sitting on the panel there, and they said, quickly, tell us about yourself. They were like, it's a factory shop operation. Next, answer the questions. Next, there were about 100 people in the hall, So I said, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And, it was like just a greeting. So they said, tell us what it means to be a flight attendant. So I said, in my mind, I knew flight attendants were, serving people on board the aircraft, but obviously it was much more than that, and I didn't want to go into the details. So I said, ladies and gentlemen, I can stand here for hours telling you what it means to be a flight attendant, but let me start by saying this. Let me sum it up for you. Let me sum up what the essence of being a flight attendant is. Now, behind them, there was this huge sign that said South African Airways, the warmest welcome. And I said to them, to sum it up, being a flight attendant is actually creating the warmest welcome. Thank you. I didn't really, and I sat down and I called my name after that. So it was, I thought, okay, why not? Let's just try it. And that's how it happened.
So where did you go from flight attendant to...
So during flight attendant, I didn't really want to do it for long. So, at that stage, I was married, and I had a beautiful daughter coming on the way. And I said, you know what, I'll do this for maybe a year or two, and then as soon as this happens. So what happened, it pushed me to get into training, because remember, that was my passion. So I kind of tried so many doors, I kind of spoke to so many people, and they said, no, you know what, you have to be here for much longer than you are to become a trainer. But I didn't give up, and I carried on. And finally, I made it to become a trainer and start training cabin crew. And then after that, I moved to managing cabin crew. And it's all because of creativity. Because I just came up with different ways for training. Fun, exciting ways, customer service, and those kind of things, started to put me on the map. So I moved up to the crew manager, and then my first official permanent manager job was I applied for the project manager with the senior vice president. It was a long shot, but I would never forget this. When I submitted my CV, I submitted the different different categories with a little drawing on each one, And when I was doing the interview, the vice president did the interview, and she was intrigued about how I drafted this thing out. And she said to me, "Listen, give me some ideas of how you would change the culture of this place, because there were a lot of problems at that stage." And I said, the main thing about changing the culture is understanding the target audience. I was quite brutal in terms of saying what was going wrong. I was saying, you want to communicate with this absent workforce using posters in the crew center. And no one stays there. You come out from the flight, you're rushing to your family. You come in, you're signing for the flight. So you're missing the picture. And I gave her some ideas of how, and that was my first, proper career move into that. And I did a project that created some momentum to my career in that position. And then I moved to, when you start doing well, they try to throw a lot of things onto you, which was okay. They had a problem in terms of flight reporting. And I was not in the IT field, at all. But I got a sponsorship or a bursary to study with the University of Queensland. And one of the things there was information systems for managers. I mean, at that time it was like I wanted to run away from this course, but I said, let me see how I can take a project and use it. So the bottom line is I kind of mapped out a way of how all the incidents happening to a passenger. I mean, you go onto a flight, you probably ordered a meal, it's not there. This is missing, the seat is light is not working, all these kind of things. All that get logged.
Right.
I kind of mapped out a way that we could actually mine this, actually capture those incidents into a system, and then put an escalation into place of how we resolve it and get a message back to the customer in time. And that was one of the things that really moved me, further up to move into Voyager.
Right.
And at Voyager, I then started to really start using more art, creativity, because then I was looking at redesigning the look and feel of the Voyager branding, the cards, the program, becoming creative, using, getting top billing involved, there's a different market we're talking about. And then from there, that was a huge change from South African Airways commercial to Denel, which was a military defense and aerospace organization.
Right.
Yeah.
So what did you do at Denel?
So at Denel, at first I was hesitant to move into that space because I really didn't understand. When you say defense, you just think, missiles and rockets, and also when I went to understand what it was Denel Aviation was a maintenance, repair, and overall company. So basically, their main customer is the Air Force, and as the Air Force flies, the helicopters come to a certain flying hours. They need to come back in, and so my job was to look further than the Air Force, and that's when it started pushing onto creativity and challenges, because Denel, at that stage, Denel Aviation was comfortable because they had a permanent source of income from the Air Force. But the problem was, if the Air Force budgets was reduced, it impacted directly on the people. You would be retrenching people.
Sure.
So I will not forget, when I first went there, I looked at everything, and then I said, we need to be hunting. We have such amazing capability. I mean, I was amazed by the technology and capability of South Africa at that stage, what we had. And we had to now rebrand, turn ourselves into marketing outside South Africa. And that's what moved me into a real business development field. And that's when I realized that relationships, after that at Denel, that was one entity, and I then moved into another entity in a higher position for aerostructures. That also, it just opened up an entire new world. I mean, in Denel Aviation, you were dealing very local, maintenance and repair. But when you get to aerostructures, it's actually manufacturing of aircraft. You're talking to guys like Boeing and Airbus. I mean, never in my wildest dreams I would be thinking that I would be sitting in front of senior people from a Boeing company, senior people from an Airbus company, traveling. I used to travel in South African Airways, but it was totally different. This is traveling going in there, meeting people that you'd never dream that you'd be sitting in front of having a discussion. Every meeting that I had, I definitely looked at it differently from my colleague who was sitting next to me. I looked at it as an opportunity for growth, an opportunity to learn, and that for me was exciting. Meeting these people, seeing how they've progressed to come here, and then continuing that relationship all the way. I mean, I can tell you, even if it's been many years, today I still have the network and the connections of all those people that I've been dealing with.
Now, Colin, today you are the business development manager for Paramount.
Yes. Yes.
And you're famous for creating a new technology.
Yes, if just to understand is Denel is the largest aerospace and defense state-owned company on the continent, and Paramount is the largest aerospace and defense company on the continent, but privately owned. So when I moved into Paramount, it was a total different landscape. You know, in Denel, because it's a state-owned company, there is a sense of comfort. You know, you get comfortable because it's a state-owned company. You feel like it's okay. You're very safe. But in Paramount, which was like a wake-up call, because now it's more closer to reality. You know, you have to really. There's no time to waste. Let's put it like that. You know, and that pushes you into another level of capability and performance. So when I got there, again, I still, the way I left Denel, I still held all those relationships. And when I got to Paramount, it was still trying to say, how can we connect and how can we work as Team SA in the defense sector?
Right.
Then just say it's Denel, it's Paramount, it's not other companies, and that's what we started to do. And if I come back and I tap onto the analogy that I used in terms of the dots and the pulsating, when I got here, there was a challenge. The challenge is that we needed to really, come up with a new, fresh idea, fresh product. Yes, we had all the capability about integrating weapon systems onto a helicopter, but how do you take this into a campaign, and how do you get more people involved? And obviously there's a cost. So what I said to the CEO is that why can't we come up with a campaign? Yes, there are helicopters, we are already doing it, we are weaponizing it, but no one really knows that it's here, and we don't have a full partnership arrangements. We just ad hoc, if this customer requires something, we call one or two suppliers, we get them on. But how do you take a supplier and turn them into a partner? And that's when we were saying, listen, let's come up with this idea. So we said, if you could, as Paramount, purchase a helicopter, then we are in the game. And to equip the helicopter with all these systems, I mean, Dr. Nick, it's, the cost of each equipment, each component is ridiculous in terms of, we don't see that, one small little computer box is 4 million rand, right? The controls is 1 million rand. This carries on. So we could not just put that fully complete weaponized helicopter together by ourselves. So we went on a campaign to say, let's look at a flash partnership arrangement. But what it did was, it tapped into the South African technology. We wanted it to be a lot of South African companies, but not to make it too complicated. All we did is we said, we're going to, I don't know if you watched this movie, it's Kevin Costner, A Field of Dreams. There's a line there, he says, he wanted to build this field, this baseball field, buy a farm and build a baseball field. His wife was thinking he's crazy, but she supported him all the way. And even though she thought it was a crazy idea, but the line from there was, build it and they will come. And we had to put this out to say, listen, we have this idea. Let's build this helicopter together, right? And we capitalize on the fact that we, as Paramount, have a marketing strategy, and we have a budget towards that in terms of the shows and exhibitions and where we're flying to. We have that. So why don't we expand and build onto that, and where we take all our partners with us wherever we go? So the concept was very, very simple, is that if you fit into this, if your weapon system or radio or avionics display is part of what we want to build, you bring it on your own, and because you must want to put it on here, because you must believe in this. And I tell you, it was just unbelievable of how these companies, small companies to the large companies, like you would have a small South African company who was just making the grips, who could not believe that they were part of this opportunity, because before they were selling these grips but to the big guys, and no one even put their name anywhere, and they were comfortable with that. I mean, you sell 10 of these grips, you sign, you're a supplier.
Sure.
But now we're saying we want to elevate you to another level, right? We want to, if you put your stuff onto this helicopter, you put any component, we will put your logo on the tail of the helicopter. It might be simple, it might sound simple to you, but to have your logo as a small company on the tail of a helicopter, and that helicopter is going to be marketed like crazy, it was just a snowball effect in terms of awareness, branding, and then obviously into contracts, because that's the end goal. So we started that, and we had a tight deadline to have it ready for a show that was last September. And just the actual, not the destination, but the journey in terms of how we got together, how we were as a team, how we had milestones in terms of celebrating this, watching this helicopter build up in front of you was amazing.
Now, Colin, I believe you tapped into a concept that today is now known as co-making or co-creating, and been profiled, I believe.
Yes, you see, I didn't know what we were actually doing, but I think maybe over last year sometime, I've been keep on preaching this thing about changing your suppliers to partners, and this at that time I didn't know it was co-making. I was just calling it co-branding, like collaboration. I want to say collaboration on a global scale, But then I was going across this article, and this guy was saying, listen, there's a new trend that's going on in co-making, and he gives two very nice examples of Fiat, who co-made with Gucci. They did the seats and the interiors, Gucci, and then Fiat, and it was a match made in heaven because the sales just increased. Then Taco Bell in the US asked Doritos to make the crusty part, and they did the filling, and the sales rocketed. So if you look at taking that into the co-making of this Flash helicopter, which is flexible light armored systems for helicopters, we started seeing this trend just go crazy, because what happened was a partner who before or previously was a supplier became actively involved in chasing leads for us. Because remember, the more helicopters we sell, the more of his product gets sold. So technically speaking, instead of going out there, normally companies would then go out and say, okay, I need to hire 5 business development managers to get a better range in terms of awareness. We've increased our range with all these companies by 100-fold. From small companies who call us and say, listen, our supplier, our country that we're supplying these grips have some helicopters there, and we've told them about this. Please take the lead. So we take the lead, we investigate the lead, we move it into like an opportunity phase, prospect, and then we move into contract. So it's really, the concept of this co-making is bigger than we just think, okay, let's put a couple suppliers and partners together. Now what we're doing is we kind of creating this group of partners into a, how can I say, not just having it loosely there, we're putting it into a proper format. We would like to create a portal where each of our partners are on. So we call it a MAP agreement, Marketing Alliance Partnership Agreement. And you know what, we kept it very soft, not like a lot of legal stuff. It basically says, you bring your stuff, you bring your component, you bring your avionic display, we will integrate it at our cost into the helicopter. And for that duration of the time, you still own it, but we take care of it. And during that time, we will vow to market your brand everywhere we go. So if we're sitting, I mean, our target audiences is only defense forces, and at a higher level. We don't. I mean, we follow all the proper rules and regulations, national arms conventions, everything. So we only sell into governments. And when we're sitting there and presenting, we have a slide that comes on, flash partnership slide. I mean, it looks amazing. A very nice mix of South African companies and the global guys. The Airbuses and the Leonardos and the Boeings. It's there.
So would you say we are now entering the era of collaboration, where we shouldn't even be talking about customers, we shouldn't be talking about suppliers, we should be only talking about partners,
yes.
in partnerships?
Yes, partnerships. Because you can see the value in it. If you bring them on board and make them part of it, they understand your goal and they feed into it. It only can get better. I mean, I remember, normally we as a company or any company think of the end product, and they want to make sure a supplier supplies on time at the right price. And that's where they stop. Now we've said, listen, you take that barrier out and bring them closer to the product that they understand it. I mean, we throw simple things like a tea and cake session, and when we do that, we invite all the partners to show them the progress we've made and what we are doing. We show them, and also the other thing, Dr. Nick, which is important, with the MAP agreement, the Marketing Alliance Partnership Agreement, we give them a view of the potential opportunities that we are chasing. I mean, you don't do that with your suppliers, right? We show them, listen, these are the 5 serious opportunities that we are chasing, and we've been there. We are now going into the show. Would you like to attend? It's a whole different collaboration.
So Colin, looking back over your career, would you say there was a major turning point where things could have gone different and you took a certain decision, or you took a choice to move this way instead of that way?
Yes, I think, if I think back, the turning point for me, as I mentioned to you, when I left, when I made the decision to leave South African Airways and move into Denel, I was very unsure about it, because it's totally 2 different jobs, and the industries are totally different. Even though it had a thread of aerospace in it, but it was totally different. I always say that in South African Airways, you are sitting in the audience, looking at the show. At Denel, because it's maintenance repair, you actually have backstage passes. You see what goes on behind the show. You see the aircraft is flying, but now you see how, what are the components that go around it. The turning point for me is when I got to Denel. I won't forget, in the first month, I thought I made the biggest mistake. I thought I made the biggest mistake because I was totally out of my comfort zone. The people were different. I mean, now I'm talking to engineers and, different dynamics. The culture was totally different. Not many of my own age group. And in the first month, I really thought that I made the biggest mistake in my life. But the turning point was to say, listen, so just to give you the sense of, let me just picture this. So I walked into my office, it was in a hangar, and out my window, I could see the helicopters in the hangar. And, every day in the morning I came in, I was thinking, what have I done, And I would look out the window and I would see this helicopter really broken down. They brought it from one of the African countries and we were fixing it up. And, every morning I come back and I see in days in front of my eyes that this helicopter started being repaired, right? Brought back to how it's supposed to be. And, I looked at this and I said, I cannot believe what an amazing place I am in. We actually you look at these things and I started changing, and I said, listen, I actually am lucky to be here, and I have to really enjoy my job, and that's the best part. And I tell you, After 3 months, I realized it was the best decision that I made, was to transition from my comfort zone of where I was to move into something that I thought that I would never work, and that actually changed my entire look in terms of career, in terms of challenges, success, networks, relationships. At first I thought the culture was totally different, but I really got to enjoy it. And I mean, up till today, I got friends all over Denell that I call all the time, and I wanted to, at that stage, make a difference there. And I wanted to really, not only for me and my job, but I wanted, first of all, the staff in Denell to realize what an amazing company that was. Then the people of South Africa to realize what capability we have in the country, and then take that outside and show the rest of the world, listen here, we have some serious capability. And in doing that, it really developed my skills in terms of, marketing, business development.
So Colin, what is driving you today?
Today, I think it's changed in a way that today the focus is slightly different. Today, I have to exist in an ecosystem around me. I cannot not adapt to it. What worked 5 years ago or 10 years ago of me, my skills and the way I operated cannot work today. I have to adapt. And coming back to your question is, today for me it's a sense of urgency. Speed to action. Because there's just too many things happening too fast. And we can see, today a business is doing well. A month, it's down. And when it's down, you lose people. Lives are affected. So I have this sense of urgency in terms of getting things done. Looking at a route of how, in my business, okay, if you come directly to what my goal is to close a deal, right? How do you tap into the network that you have in the way that I described to you and bring it into closing that deal? How can I say is that, I'm trying to harness all the development that I've got from this from the art days as a student to right now as a business development manager, harnessing everything and not leaving anything out, and trying to come out and say, listen here, how do I close this deal?
So Colin, let's talk about leadership. And I know it's a big question, but what does the future of leadership mean to you?
So, leadership has to exist in the circumstance that we are. Leadership has to be adaptable. I have been, as I said, the different companies. I have experienced different types of leadership, and it always comes back to a leadership that understands the people and is plugged into now. The reason why I talk like this, Dr. Nick, is that look at the companies that I actually was in, or it's changed drastically. People are losing their jobs. They are resigning. We are losing them to other companies. We are losing them out of the country. I'll give you an example. I was recently at a show in the UAE, and I've been to the show for many years. It happens every 2 years, and it's a defense and aerospace show. And when I got there this year, I was amazed when I visited the different exhibition stands, UAE companies, and go there to visit them, and I was surprised to see faces that I worked with, great talent, experienced guys that I worked with that are now holding senior positions in those companies. Yes, it's great for that, but to think about it, we are losing a lot of people, right? So when you come back to leadership, what leaders need to do to really make their employees, their team enjoy their job? Now, I'm lucky. If I can use an example, is our CEO, for example. Also, let me tell you this: leaders retain, good leaders retain, and good leaders attract. So one of the reasons for me to move to Paramount is because I knew the type of leadership that I was going to be exposed to. I understood that, and that was the defining factor. So today, leadership is I would say the most important ingredient in a successful company. Because how do you make your staff enjoy their job? This I'll use his line, which also was quite a tempting one to come in, because he says his leadership is find the right people, point them in the direction, and get out of their way. So if you break that up, leadership have to be in a way that you create an environment for people to express their ability, and you have to be adaptable, and depending on where any company is, you have to change the leadership in order to move that company to the next phase. If you don't, and it's going to die. And we can, more than ever, that's why when I told you in part one, my real strategy and a real operation where I'm carrying on every single day is a sense of urgency. Because if you do not do that, the consequences are huge. People lose their jobs.
Now, Colin, what have you learned from your own journey that you consider most important for building future leaders?
It has to be, I tap on this over and over again, relationship. Relationship is broad. If you define it, you come closer. It becomes very simple. It's the simple part of kindness, respect, understanding, involvement. Very, very early stages, during the time when I was studying art, I was going through some theory to actually express myself onto these drawings. And I came across something that says that, you have to focus on the contribution and the rewards will come automatically. Now, most leaders today are fixated on what can we get out. And then they start pushing their people towards that goal. And everything becomes about that goal. So, this for me is proven time and time again in my career growth, in my in some of the most exciting successes, was to focus on the contribution, and the rewards did come automatically.
Now, Colin, when you speak to aspiring leaders, what do you tell them they should focus on for future-proofing their career?
Well, future leaders have to be seriously willing to take chances, calculated chances. They have to move out of their comfort zones, because it is really I would say it develops you. You cannot get more development. People look at development as in going to the traditional, going for a course or going to a university, but they miss completely that the big developments are actually in the movements and the choices you make. If you choose to get out of your comfort zone. It is the biggest learning and development that you would have, right? And when you do that, you leave a legacy. And it's about leaving that legacy that you can, lead. Because you have to have some, when you go to lead, people always look, why should they listen to you? What have you left? What is your legacy? What is your successes? Now, you tend to gain, I'll use the word followers because, if you're saying young people trying to become leaders, your followers are already 30 to 40% into your route before you can speak, if you have a legacy, So, how do you do that? You have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to look at the end goal. I mean, as I said to you in part one, some of my accomplishments that I feel most excited about is not really about closing some of the deals. Yes, some of the deals were good, some of the things. But for example, some things that I will always be excited about is that, and the other thing is involvement. You have to be involved. No, if you have this one job and there's your spec of what you needed to do and you stick to that, you're going to be bored. You must do all that you can there as your job spec and more in a fun and exciting way. I'll give you an example. My job was at one stage just marketing, right? But I felt that I can do all the marketing and do the nice corporate videos that expresses all our capability, do the glossy profiles, and if I stopped there and didn't understand what the business development or the sales guys were doing with that, I didn't feel I was responsible enough to the people that I employed. So what I did was, I asked the questions of where are you marketing this? Where is it going? Who are you talking to? How is it? So basically, I asked the questions of how does a lead move from one point to the contract, and that's when I started to see. You can do all the marketing, you have the best video, but if it's not carried out all the way properly, you're wasting your time. So I started getting involved, not like criticizing, saying to the sales guy, no. I started creating ways of how we can track and monitor a lead that help them as a salesperson. So as I did that, the CEO of that company said, listen, Colin, you want to be an expert, in a fun and a jokey way. He said, okay, why don't you try out doing business development for country X, Y, and Z? I said, great, I'll take it on, I'll take the challenge. And you see, it started developing me because I went out of my comfort zone. And then I learned more. And then I said, okay, what's happening with this? I was intrigued about that time when the triple B scores started coming out. And you had to get a certain score for corporate social investment. You had to get a certain score for, at that time we didn't understand what's enterprise development. And I was intrigued about this, and I said, okay, corporate social investment, what is it? So the HR person said, listen, no, we have to spend 1% of our net profit onto the schools and young learners. I said, you know what? I'm interested in that. Can I help you with that? She said, what do you mean? I said, no. What if I get you, and listen, this is done by an external audit. So I said, what if I can get you 100% score, but you give me the 1% budget, then I tell you, that was a start of changing the way I started operating. And then talking about creating a legacy is because of that. So we, at that time, that company in the group was the first to score 100% for corporate social investment. I took the budget and I used it in such a way that we marketed air shows around the country, and I bussed kids from the rural areas to come, which they've never in their lives come near an aircraft or even touched an aircraft. And I got them to see those looks and smiles and amazement in their faces. Remember, I was not in HR. I was in marketing. But it was good marketing and good true corporate social investment to have these kids. You could, I can promise you, we've changed some lives there, because those children that have got inspired those years ago must have said, this is it, I want to be a pilot, or I want to be a technician or an engineer. And that's called as so that, for me, moves you out of your comfort zone, gets involved, focuses on contribution, and the rewards come automatically. And then you start leaving those legacies. And when you move in the role of a leader to inspire people, you will have these stories to tell. Because instead of standing up there and saying, I am a good leader, I'm going to take you places, I'm going to get you from point A to point B. Everybody can say that, right? But if you can share the real movements that you've made, the times when you have taken the decision to move out of your comfort zone, to move into other areas, that builds up a leader.
Now, Colin, let's talk about the tools of technology. And what are the tools of technology or technologies that you would recommend future leaders should master and learn from?
Well, we cannot separate, I think today you cannot separate leadership from technology and the tools around it. These days, communication tools is key. How you communicate using the new technology is key. How do you use there's so many that you have to tap into. So, to give you an example in terms of using technology, I'll come back to the campaign on Flash. I was telling the CEO, listen, there must be a fun element into this. If there's no fun in it, you don't attract people. People don't, you want to be enjoying it. So I said, we have to make a Flash game. So he says, what do you mean? I said, no, an actual video game, but it'll become a marketing and tool. So he says, how will it work? I said, no. We get youngsters, pull into a company, and we make a game where the customer plays. So let's say we want to sell this helicopter to a potential customer. What if the customer clicks on and he selects the helicopter that he has in mind? Let's say, because a customer might have 1 or 2 or 3 helicopters with him. He selects the helicopter on the game, clicks it, the helicopter comes in front, like a video game, it's rotating. Now he knows the need for that helicopter. It's probably anti-poaching or terrorism or whatever. He knows it needs. So then we have on the left the different weapon systems that he can select. Or it could be a sensor, or it could be a scanner, or whatever. So he clicks on it, and it then gets onto the helicopter right in front of him. And as he selects, it builds up his own customized Flash. And then after he's built it up, he clicks it, and then he can fly it, fire the weapons. Now, yes, it's a game, but for us as marketing, we had built in and some kind of intelligence, because when we put the game out there and our potential customers, defense people, colonels, captains from different air forces around the world are coming to a show and they want to now play with this. Remember, they have to put in their details, then they select the helicopter, And now we are starting to learn from different customers what they mainly clicking on. If they keep on clicking on the sensor for border control, then we realize when we pull the analysis out, it shows us where we as a business should be focusing on. So technology, game, tool, marketing, all starts to pull together. So we can pull out one report and say, listen, 500 people went into this game and played it. These are and look at the trend is, it's actually poaching, anti-poaching, border control. That's where we should be focusing. Okay, let's look at our partners in terms of these sensors, radars. You see, so leadership has to be connected to the tangible technology that is existing.
So maybe every business should have their own game.
That's it. Gamification. Gamification is it's old, but we need to bring it. People need to understand. It's easy to say gamification, but how do you connect gamification to the end goal of closing the contract? And this is how we can do it. Because
now, Colin, when it comes to social media, how do you suggest future leaders should go about handling social media to build their own brands?
Well, you cannot separate leadership now today from social media. You have to build that brand, and choosing the right platform is important. Today, if you look at it by default, LinkedIn seems to be a good platform, but you have to do it in a very professional manner. You have to know exactly when and what to post. Okay, exactly what to post. So it has to be. I would think, if people, especially leaders, to use social media, you have to have guidance. You shouldn't take this on your own, because you can mess it up, and you can't come back from that. So it's got to be calculated. It's got to be guided. So, for example, most companies have this. They have reputational management companies. You don't have to go to that extreme. But if you say, as a leader, I want to use, or you first choose a platform. Let's say it's going to be LinkedIn. You have to have a coordinated strategy on that social media platform. Who's putting your profile together? What picture do you choose? And when are you posting and what are you posting? So you start building that profile, just like you're building an entire career, or your career. It's a CV, but it's an active live CV that every minute somebody can have an impression of you, but it has to be connected.
Now, Colin, as a mentor to future leaders, can you maybe share a success story with us where you mentored somebody and that person took your advice to heart?
Okay. So, there's a few of it. Let me pick one. Some of the stuff that we did in marketing is always exciting, and people always say, I wish I could be doing this project or going for this show. There was one young lady, she was working in HR, and she was very interested to just help, and she had this thing about contributing without the rewards, and you can pick that up because I said to her, listen, I know you wanted this, but we don't have a budget for your time. She says, no, I just want to learn. I want to be able to do this. And gradually she was getting involved in seriously contributing into this. And what she did was she started learning the ideas that we came up with in the marketing team, the projects that we did, bringing her own thing. So slowly, as she did that, and her own time came out today, she is a senior person at Danone, handling an entire company for marketing, exhibition, and shows. And I'm really proud of that, because she was serious. She took everything that I said seriously, to a point where she just grew in the career. I mean, remember, she was a temp in the HR office, a PA, as a temp. She took that chance of contributing without considering the rewards. She took that chance about getting involved, and look at her now. I mean, another example I always say is that I used to walk from the car park to my office every morning, and there was this young guy, his name was Matanya. This is years ago. I'm talking 15, I think it's more, 15 years ago. No, actually about 20 years ago. This is long. I mean, this is one of my first jobs. And as I walk, he used to wash the cars of the executives. And every morning he used to greet me, but he had this, this excitement in his voice every time. Hi, how are you doing, Colin? What are you doing today? Where are you going today? So, and he always was there. And I said to him, listen, Matanya, do you want to come and assist us in the weekends? But we don't really, we don't have a budget for it. We haven't got a position. But I think that, you could learn something. And without hesitation, he said yes. And in the weekends, he was there. He was doing, because we had 3,000 somewhat crew that he had to box drop these pamphlets for. But what he did was, he started connecting with the people around him. And the people loved him. And when the position came out, he applied for it. And he got it. And today, he is still at South African Airways. So,
now, Colin, are there any role models of leadership that you would recommend future leaders should study and maybe learn from?
Well, I think even if you don't have to even go out of South Africa, I think there are great leaders in South Africa. They just don't. As I said to you, they don't have a proper profile builder. They don't have a proper person that actually markets them. Because I always believe, I've been telling it from a long time, for the CEOs that I worked for, I always said to them, if you employ me as your marketing person, I'm going to tell you up front that you, as the CEO, is as important as the products we sell. And they kept on asking, but I said, no, first of all, you need to be profiled. One CEO, I said, no, you have to be on the cover of this particular magazine. And he said, but why? I said, no, because if I'm marketing and you want me to sell this, I need these things to be set out. So we build this, people need to understand who this company is and what they stand for. If they see the leader and they understand what he stands for and they see him, projecting this, so you have to build that leader. So in South Africa alone, I mean, there's so many good leaders here. Like, it's very, sometimes leadership is right near you. You have to be perceptive in terms of saying that's a good leader. Sometimes we don't see it because we want to look up to the names that we hear all the time, because as I said, they are well marketed, they got a good portfolio. But we need to, as young leaders coming up, we need to absorb and be perceptive of pockets of leadership excellence that is happening right around us. So I wouldn't say, this one leader here. If you want to build a proper leadership toolkit, you should, as a young leader, growing up or coming up to say, listen, I want to be the strong leader, is already today start being perceptive and taking the leadership excellence from each engagement that you have and start creating this, because it's becoming very, very diverse. And situations today, make leaders, they don't have everything all in one package. Now, it's up to us to want to become the best leader.
Right.
To take the best from the people that we interact with. And leadership is not only, the components of this leadership you only don't have to look for it in the CEOs or the people that you report to, because sometimes it's in the people that report to you.
Now, Colin, how can our listeners get hold of you, and where should they follow you?
Well, I think for me, the platform that I'm using currently, which I think is, I think it's most apt if you talk about what I'm doing is LinkedIn. I find that being a much more professional platform that I share interesting developments. I like to share leadership success stories. So LinkedIn is the place where I am.
And Colin, last but not least, is there one piece of advice that you would really like to convey to future leaders that they should implement in their own life?
I think it's very important that you do not separate into boxes your career, your family life, your personal hobbies and everything, because you need to have this balance. Otherwise, you can forget doing well in your career. You have to have a very, very strong balance. And I think key, I know it might be a little bit philosophical or something, but health is important. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a gym fanatic. I don't think I've ever been to the gym, but I believe that a healthy lifestyle is part of your normal day. You have to incorporate it into that. So the things about eating healthy, the things about exercising, you can incorporate it into your normal day. And the balance of all that, if you gotta have very good, strong communication across these barriers, from your career to your home, your hobbies, there have to be some kind of balance. And that's the foundation. If that's not structured properly, you cannot excel in any one of those.
Well, that is deep and very true. So Colin, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your wisdom, and for helping us build a better future, and for trailblazing, if I may say so, for pioneering the way forward into the future and into this era of collaboration.
Thank you, Dr. Nick. Thank you for having me.